Welcome back to KLR, the Photo Guru YouTube channel. My name is Ponsing. What is the role of ISO in photography and how effectively you can use it? This is the content of this video. Before you go into the video, if you are not subscribed for KLR, the Photo Guru, please do that immediately. Press the bell button also to get the updates from us. The ISO settings in our camera is used to control the exposure along with the other two controls, aperture and shutter speed. The ISO is nothing but the light responding capacity of your camera's image sensor in a given lighting condition. If you choose to work with higher ISO numbers, your sensor becomes more sensitive towards the light. That means you can take pictures even in the low light condition. If you look into the camera settings, the ISO starts from 100 and it goes up to 25,600 in most of the cameras and even more than that in some other cameras. The increment starts like this. You have 100 ISO as the minimum, and from there you can go to 200, the next major stop, then 400, 800, 1600, 3200, 6400 and 12800 and so on. When you try to increase the ISO value from 100 to 200, what happens is the picture becomes 2 times more brighter. From 400, if you take it to 800, again it becomes more brighter by 2 stops. So the variations of each and every ISO settings in your camera will denote basically a 1-stop exposure difference in your final picture. Lower ISO settings are generally used on bright light outdoor settings and in some of our studio settings when you are using strobe lights inside the studio. Higher ISO settings are generally used in low light outdoor settings like night photography or late evening photography, or sometimes stage light photography where the light is actually very low, the intensity is very low. You can also use the ISO to get a freezing effect in a picture or a blurring effect in a picture. Normally to freeze the action in a picture, you increase the shutter speed. When you increase the shutter speed, if the light is not enough or sufficient, then you need to increase the ISO also. So you can understand it this way. Whenever you want to freeze an action, you are rising up the shutter speed. So you can also increase the ISO so that now you are able to get the proper exposure. Similarly, if you want to get a blurring effect, you reduce your shutter speed. Your picture becomes slightly blurry or the action becomes slightly blurry. You want that effect to show a dynamic effect of motion in a picture. In such cases, you can reduce the ISO. So the conclusion here is to get the freezing effect, you have to increase the ISO, which will facilitate faster shutter speed. To get a blurring effect, you have to decrease the ISO, that will also facilitate usage of lower shutter speeds. Now the connection between depth of field and the ISO. Depth of field is the effective sharpness in a particular picture. This is generally being controlled with the help of aperture. So if you want to get a greater depth of field, you close the aperture or you increase the aperture number maybe to f22 or f32 and all. So the light that is coming into the camera and falling out of the sensor becomes very less. In such cases, you have to increase the ISO. So to get the greater depth of field, you have to increase the ISO. At the same time, if you want to get a shallow depth of field, you open the aperture. That means you move the aperture value to f4 or f3.5 or f2.8 and so on. In such cases, the aperture opens wider. When the aperture opens wider, more light comes into the camera and it can easily create an image on the sensor. In such cases, you can decrease the ISO value. So to get a shallow depth of field, decrease the ISO. To get a greater depth of field, you can increase the ISO. When you increase the ISO from 100 to 200 or 400 and 800 and so on, you will be able to get the proper exposure, no doubt, even in the low light condition. But incidentally, what happens is the image becomes more noisy, or you get more digital noise in your pictures where you are trying to increase the ISO above certain levels. So higher ISOs will result in noise. So the noise is not a favorable effect or a favorable condition in case if you are going to enlarge a picture and make a print out of it. So whenever you want to make a picture for a professional application, and you are going to print it to a larger size, it is recommended to use a lower ISO values, maybe 100 or 200 and so on. I hope this video would have given you ample scope for using the ISO effectively in a given situation. Take advantage of the ISO controls and make pictures creatively. If you find the information shared in the video useful, please like it, share it, and subscribe to KLR The Photo Guru YouTube channel and press the bell button for the updates. I'll catch up with you with similar videos in future. Take care.